I'm just going to quickly go over a few of the changes that have happened in the Facebook platform since our last session in December. There have been quite a few. I'm going to focus primarily on the front-end changes that affect the way users interact with your apps and your properties. And then I'm going to quickly go over some more of the minor technical things that you need to be aware of as developers. Before I begin, I'd like to get a good idea of how many of you consider yourself technical people? All right, technical people in the house. How many of you are more of a client-facing, creative background? Okay, good. You're welcome too. Don't worry. I won't leave you behind, I promise. Okay. So Facebook turned 6 this month, 6 years now. And I just wanted to highlight a few milestones, some stats, which you can barely see. The big number is 400 million total users, of which half of them are active every day. So that's 200 million active users, which is astounding, an astounding number. They've got lots of fan pages. Since the fan pages have launched, there have been 5.3 billion fan actions, and expect to see a lot more. And the average user spends about an hour every day on Facebook, which is incredible. The graph, which you can't make out, is from the Mashable infographic, which basically has at the top is the estimated valuation of Facebook, and at the bottom is the number of users. So you can see on the far right is where we are now. The valuation, who knows? But the users, looking great. Another thing that happened in the past couple of weeks, Facebook Chat has gone open. So they've embraced an open protocol, an open standard called Jabber, or XMPP. And that means you can use an external desktop client to connect with Facebook Chat. It means you can use mobile devices. It means there's a whole lot of clients that you can now use to do Facebook Chat. You're no longer tied into using the web interface. We think that in the future this will help mobile apps get more traction. And we may see more from Facebook, more real-time things happening with chat. But at the moment, all I've done is open it up, become standards compliant, which is great. They're not federated yet, which means that you can't connect your Facebook chat to your friend's Google Talk, or you can't connect to a corporate Jabber server, for example. That's possibly in the works. They'll probably be working on that. You can block users using friend lists, which is the same way it works in the existing Facebook chat. And it integrates quite well with the existing web chat. You can have a browser open and your client open, and it seems to work fine. You get your messages popping up in both. The main change I'm going to cover today is the dashboard, which is a new system for bookmarks and for seeing app changes. So I'll quickly just skip ahead and show you what it looks like. The dashboard now has your bookmarks, your application bookmarks on the left-hand side there, at the bottom there. And if you click on applications or games, you'll see a summary of activity, of things that Facebook thinks you might be interested in. Now, as developers, you have a way of getting your content into this feed. So for example, there's 2 items here. There's at the top, there's a global news item in that second activity, that second story. You can do a personal news item, and you can do a global news item. Now, personal news items are targeted at a specific user ID. Global news items show for all users in the app. Now, what is it? So the dashboard, how do you get content onto the dashboard? You can use different API methods. There's different ways of adding news, global news, news for a specific user, and also publishing activity, which I'll come to in a minute. Just like publishing a feed story, a stream story, you can use the actor token, which gets replaced by the user's full name. And you can also use this new @ syntax, which I think some of you probably are familiar with when you actually write in the publisher in Facebook, using the web interface. You can put @, and you can type a friend's name in, and Facebook will autofill that for you with their full name and a link to their profile. You can do that using this API as well. Some guidelines, you can only do 50 characters in length for the main message. Your action link text has to be short as well, 25 characters. And you have to follow the standard guidelines. So just back to the example. So the green line, the top one, a personal news item, that is specifically for this user. Only she gets to see that. The bottom one, a test global news item, is for all the app users. Now, one thing that we found when we were experimenting with this is that you can actually publish a news item for a user who is not allowed your app, which opens up possibilities for doing user-to-user style communication using this method. The most two recent news items will show on the dashboard there. Depending on whether it's personal or global, whatever the two latest are. You can specify a custom image, 64 by 64 pixels, which can be used and show in that feed. In this case, it's the big N, the big blue N. So that's targeting users and their own personal news. You can also see what your friends are up to in your apps. And at the moment, the default is just says, for example, this Domino's Superfans app, it just shows who's been using it. There's no extra data involved. As developers, you can add new data. You can say things, for example, here, this activity item, I've challenged Jessica to a battle, basically. And we've played it, and now my friends can see that I battled her, and there's an action link which lets them see who won. So it's a way of showing how a user's friends are interacting with your app. The activities don't show in the user's own dashboard. So that item about me battling Jessica is not going to show on my page. Only my friends will see that. You can only use the application logo. In this case, it's the big N again. And you can only target an application user. You can't just target anyone. They have to be an app user. Okay. Also new with the dashboard is when a user bookmarks your app, they get an entry on the dashboard on the left there. And again, there's a little N. The little number next to it in brackets is the counter. Now, a counter is meant as a way of lightly telling users that there's an action they can take within your app. And all you do to set it, there's a few methods to increment it, decrement it, and just set it outright. When a user clicks on that link and goes to your page, it'll take you to the bookmark URL. That counter will be reset automatically by Facebook. So it's a kind of way of just saying, oh, there's 3 new things that you should come to the app to see. Also, something that launched earlier at the end of January is the new email permissions. So notifications are going to be gone as of March 1st. And to help replace them, Facebook have allowed us as developers to ask for a user's real email address. And it's called the email extended permission. I'm not going to detail it too much here because there's a lot of reading you need to do to get around the guidelines, to get your head around how you're meant to use it. If you want to quickly get started, just go to the developer app in Facebook, go to your advanced settings, and enter an email domain. And that will automatically enable this box here, which will show at the top of every Canvas page until the user ignores it or hits close. And that lets you ask for email permission. And once you have the email permission, it doesn't actually give you the email address. It just lets you use SQL and use the API to fetch that email address from Facebook. So if you do have a mailing system, you might want to write it so that it gets the freshest email addresses from the user's table. It's the user SQL table. And please check out the developer roadmap and the wiki page, because there's a lot more to know about that. They've been doing well for us developers by adding lots more SQL tables. So I'm grateful to Facebook for letting us have access to a lot of these things, because we can use them to really enhance a lot of the applications. So there's a new privacy table, which lets you query for any bit of Facebook content what were the user's privacy settings. Now this means, as developers, you're going to have a lot more of a responsibility of trying to respect those privacy settings. So if you have an app that looks at people's photos, you now have a chance of saying, well, do you really want to share this with your friends when I see that your privacy setting is just don't share it, for example. You can also find out which content people have liked. So it's a quick way of, once you know a content ID, you can see all the users who've clicked like on it. You can also, if you have a lot of apps that you're managing, or if you write meta apps for developers to help them manage their properties, you can now get a list of all the apps that they're a developer for. So you need the user ID, plug that into the system, and you get a huge list of, well, in my case, a huge list of apps that you're a developer for. You can also get information about people's families. They've opened the videos table up, so you can get an embed HTML block of a video and plug it into your page. And you can also see who's been tagged in what videos. How many of you have read the actual roadmap page, are familiar with this developer roadmap? Okay, good. The rest of you who raised your hand at the beginning, who said you were technical, you all need, and didn't raise your hands now, you need to check it out.